Hello, everybody. Welcome to the HooperCast. Today we are cranking it to 88 on the HooperCast. Right, Dustin?
88 miles an hour.
Oh!
Great Scott.
Great Scott!
Great Scott, Marty.
It's the HooperCast. Hey, we are at episode 88, and that's great because if we can make it to episode 100, Dustin, we can get syndicated.
Oh, snap.
Oh, and then we can stop working.
I know.
Get that mailbox money.
Just let that money roll in.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld style.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, did you see the Blu-ray, the limited edition Back to the Future Blu-ray that's coming out in October?
No?
Yeah, man, it looks awesome. So I believe it's coming out on the day that Marty traveled
on the
forward.
On the 21st?
October 21st. And so it's just a new Blu-ray set. I think it's the same as the old one, just in new packaging, except they have added an additional bonus feature disc, which is cool. And if you buy the Blu-ray, like the big high-end set, then you also get the entire animated series with it.
Wow. Which
I've never seen the animated series. But yeah, you get the entire animated series, plus it comes like in this steelbook flux capacitor, which actually lights up and stuff.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, that would look awesome on my shelf.
Yeah.
I'd like turn out my lights and let that flux capacitor light up my room.
Right.
That would be amazing. But I don't know if I should double dip on that because I've already got it on Blu-ray. I've got it on DVD too. But if I buy this Blu-ray, which is like $90, I don't know if I should double dip on that.
I personally will not. I don't know.
I might have to.
I've ever since the series of events in my life, from entering the workforce to getting married to having a kid and buying a house, just a few of my accomplishments. That sounded so douchey. That's why I had to make that little joke. I'm sorry, everyone. That sounded so douchey of me to say. My point is,
from when I bought the house,
I've invested
in the stock market.
When I bought the BMW. Yes.
My Beamer.
Yes, my Beamer.
Did you read that New Yorker article?
I wrote it. I also own the magazine. My computer.
My computer.
There you go, John. That's for you.
Bounce.
I will not be double dipping because I've become so robotically pragmatic these days that I've got the Blu-rays. I'm trying to watch them with my freaking mom. It's so hard to schedule it. Did you ever think that it'd be so hard to find a time to watch a movie with your mom? Like your mom of all people, who's probably like, Dustin, I'd love to spend time with you whenever, Is that what your mom sounds like?
Sure, close.
My mom
we'll just go with that.
But with my mom, it's always like, well, it's going to be tough to schedule that. I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So the rejection is...
rejection from your own mother.
My therapist would have a field day with it.
Yes.
Well, hey, today we're going to talk about a couple movies, and if time permits, some more movies or film news, or probably just movies. Dustin's got quite a backlog here.
I do.
I'm trying to find my notes. There they are. I'd like to talk about American Sniper first.
Okay.
So when you saw this a couple weeks ago, right? How long ago?
I saw it. I saw it when it first came out on Redbox. So it's been, I don't know, 3 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah, man, I rented it. I wanted to see it in theaters when it was out. Just never got around to it.
Same here.
There was one evening where I thought I was going to, and I remember driving up to another town nearby to see the film at this awesome theater out there. And
what town was it?
Kennesaw.
Oh, Kennesaw.
And but it just it never happened. I think we got kind of caught up shopping. There's a couple of really cool antique stores and secondhand kind of thrift stores, and there's this really cool, John and I went to it actually, that really cool store that has all kinds of cool pop culture collectibles. And I think what ended up happening was we spent too long at those places and we just couldn't make the movie. But anyway, yeah, I intended on seeing it, but whatever.
Yeah, I wanted to see it in theaters too, and I just I either got caught up with work or something, or counting my beamers. Listeners, please don't be deceived. I am not rich by any measure.
Let me list my accomplishments.
It is a very sad charade for me to pretend I am, because I am not by any measure. I'm quite poor.
That's okay, Hooper.
Yes.
If some of you would get off your wallets and donate to the podcast, though.
I know, right? I could be riding high. I could have, lots of beamers.
Not that your money would go to our pocket.
I'd say I'm lower middle class. That probably works. I mean, I own a computer. I mean, I can't be that poor, but...
Right, sure.
I just can barely pay my bills. Yeah, so American Sniper, I got it on Redbox as well, and I'm familiar with the subject matter because I read the book. And another thing I don't usually do, which is finish books, but I finished that book. I actually went to the library. It was insane. It was like a turn back time. Go to the library, get the book, finish it. This is not a Connor that most people know.
No. I wish I could read books.
You just get the audiobook.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm too lazy for that.
Perhaps from audible.com. I will say no more. I'm not going to tell you what it is because they're not a sponsor. I don't have to do that. But
I know.
They're just use a certain search engine on any one of these web browsers that I won't name from on a computer manufactured by a couple of different big companies that have been competing for decades. I'm not going to tell you about either. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so American Sniper. Who else doesn't endorse us, Dustin?
Everybody on Earth.
You know who should endorse us is Ritalin, because if they did, I would keep focus and talk about American Sniper here. So, American Sniper is directed by Clint Eastwood. It's starring Bradley Cooper, and I guess I should admit, and Sienna Miller and other people. But the main character is a man named Chris Kyle, who was a real life Navy SEAL. He has the most confirmed kills in United States history, and he did 4 tours in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Afghanistan. I'm the one who read the book. I can't remember what country. In Afghanistan during the war in Iraq. I mean, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Everyone knows what war I'm talking about. The one over there right now, still. So, yeah, I'm going to say it positively. He was a really talented sniper.
Yeah,
and he was killed in 2012 by a fellow veteran. I don't remember the guy's name. I don't care.
I can't remember
that he was helping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But the film is about that time in his life. He's where they're fighting a war, and his wife is at home with his family, and it's about multiple things. I hate phrasing it like this, but the war inside yourself. Like, how do you cope with taking life, and to the point where you kind of don't feel it. Mm-hmm. It highlights the struggles of any or most military people, which is you're out there fighting this war, and you have people out there who might, question why they're there, or you have guys, mostly guys who are fully committed to it, and then you have the people who are fighting the war at home, whose husbands or wives are off at war, and you're raising your children by yourself, and you don't know if they're going to come home. Sometimes you don't know what they're doing, where they are, and it's very difficult. So that struggle is really highlighted in the book, and I felt like they did a good job with this movie showing it visually. And
I think so.
And especially Bradley Cooper with playing the guy. I mean, it can be tough because recently, especially even after his death, which is kind of messed up in my opinion, like people criticize Chris Kyle because they think like he's a sociopath, or they didn't like that he called the Taliban savages, or that he took lives, period, and that he may or may not have been in New Orleans during Katrina shooting armed criminals or something. I don't know. I don't really know anything about that. That's not in the movie. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And it's so I guess it can be sort of tough portraying, a big Texan who 100% believes in the war effort, 100% believes in America, and feels little remorse taking life. for a lot of people, especially in the Hollywood circles, that might seem like, a guy who's not good. Most of the people who go over there and in special forces not special forces, Navy SEALs, or special forces, whatever, in general, special forces, not capitalized, not proper noun, special forces, lowercase. They don't question the reasons they're there. They join the military for a reason. They have their orders, and Chris Kyle himself, it's in the movie too. I don't think it may or may not have been in the correct context, but he has said that he was prepared to answer to his creator for every shot he took, for every life he took. He was protecting soldiers, and therefore he was protecting American lives. Yeah. And he would never apologize because he murdered no one. He protected by using lethal force. So it can be tough to portray a character like that and for him to be sympathetic. And I think it came across, and especially Sienna Miller, who I knew she was in the film, and then I forgot, and then like halfway through, I was like, God, who is this? Who's playing his wife, by the way? And I just didn't think about it. I saw the character. I didn't think about where I knew her from or whatever. I just paid attention to who she was portraying, and I just thought those were two really great performances. I'm kind of going on about it. I don't know, Dustin. What did you think of it? I mean,
I agree. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I mean, it was a great film that I felt like succeeded in saying what it wanted to say. I think it had a voice, and it certainly had a message that it was trying to send, and or maybe multiple messages that it was trying to send. And I think it sent all of them very well. And I think that it was well directed. I think that there was like you said, some great performances. I thought there was some clever dialogue, some clever screenplay writing behind the whole thing, and I think that just by and large, all the pieces kind of came together. I'll say maybe as just sort of a one negative is I do think the film ends with its weakest scene, which is a little disappointing maybe. But I did feel like maybe the weakest scene.
If a wink at the audience could be a negative thing, that's what that last scene was.
Yeah, I just felt like maybe, I mean, okay, so maybe Clint Eastwood was doing everything, on par with the rest of the film, but it almost felt like everybody else was, Bradley Cooper, Sienna Miller, everybody was kind of, winking at the audience or almost like, I don't know. It just didn't feel sincere. Like this is another day. It felt like an epilogue that was tacked on at the end in reshoots or something. It felt really strange to me. And
I know what you mean. Like it was almost.
It felt surreal. Like whereas the rest of the film felt so grounded. This, the scene begins with like a shot of his arm with a gun. And walking through his own house, right? Mm-hmm. And it felt like a dream. It felt so like off balance for the rest of the whole film. So I don't know that it's really necessarily a bad thing, but I will say that I felt like it ended with its weakest scene, which is a disappointment. Just trying to go out of a picture, but yeah, I mean that's really the only negative I can kind of. Throw at it because, I think you hit on a lot of good points that there are people who, certainly don't like this film, and these detractors kind of come in and try to pull away a man's accomplishments based on their own interpretations of what he was thinking and feeling and doing rather than any basis in reality. I don't think the film ever said like, hey, if you want to be a good person, then pick up some guns and go kill some people. And which is what I feel like some people were trying to make it seem like. And, I don't know. I feel like those people, if they had watched the film with an open kind of like, let's look and dissect this person rather than let's look at political messages, then I feel like they would have been more satisfied because they wouldn't have been so shallow in their reviews of the film. Like,
can you imagine what would have happened if Oliver Stone had directed this?
Oh, it would have been a completely
every
different
single
movie.
Character would have a slightly different opinion about the war, and it would be all about, is the war justified or not?
Right.
I'm so glad they didn't, like, there's a political atmosphere around it, obviously, but the film is not inundated, or even a little bit inundated, with people going like, hey man, why are we even here? I mean, you have one guy who that's, and it's accurate that he wrote a letter home kind of wondering why he was there, and he was killed 2 weeks later.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, had it been anyone other than Clint Eastwood, it probably would have been a little more apologetic than this film ended up being.
Right.
And so for that reason, I'm glad it was a Clint Eastwood film, because Clint Eastwood can go in and say, this is the way it is. Like, I'm going to make the movie. If you don't like it, whatever. Right. Not that Clint Eastwood sounds like that. If you don't like it. But it's all, you know, it's just, the only word I can think of for it is unapologetically in favor of this man, his accomplishments, and really what we're doing overseas in Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The biggest problem I have with the film, and it doesn't really break the scene because it's still, you know, everyone knows it, is that fake baby.
Oh, yeah, that fake baby.
That baby's bad, man.
It is. And I mean, I typically like hate when like one thing becomes the review focus for a movie, like when Jurassic World came out and everyone's like running in high heels, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's not valid criticism. In this case, I kind of feel like it's a little more valid, because I don't know if it's just because I hold the opinion as well, but I feel like it's more valid because it breaks and takes you out of the film.
It does take you out of the film. There's a whole section on the internet about it. But the screenwriter Jason Hall had said, I hate to ruin the fun, but real baby number 1 showed up with a fever, and real baby number 2 was a no-show. You know, so, and then apparently he did a Clint voice, and he just said, give me the doll, kid. So
yeah.
I understand, like, on the day, like, crap, the baby's not here.
Yeah.
Maybe reshoot that one scene. I'm not, again, like, I don't know their shooting schedule, or I don't know what it was. Maybe the budget schedules didn't permit, but I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, hey, let's put an asterisk next to this whole scene because we may have to come back and shoot that again with a real baby.
Right. Yeah, true. Or at least like,
they sincerely forgot, and then they got in post and they're like, crap, everyone's already released. Like, Sienna's pregnant, so we can't reshoot the scene. Bradley shaved his head bald, so we can't. Oh God, this is a night. Bradley bleached his skin orange to play an Oompa Loompa. Yeah. What are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just
I was going between Oompa Loompa and Snooki, and I couldn't pick one, and I figured Oompa Loompa is now more relevant a joke than Snooki was.
Anyway, but that's one little scene, and if you just kind of sit there, and I was expecting it, so of course I looked straight at it, and I was like, all right, let's get this out of the way. I just stared at it, and I was like, Jesus, that's bad. But then I was like, okay, well, let's just pretend it's a real baby, and, you know, he's still sad, and it's still, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, can you guys not scrape together, like, a couple $100,000 and get some CGI covering that thing up or something, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Clint Eastwood came in and said, hey, we need some more money, they would be like, okay, Clint.
Otherwise, a very good film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's not a whole lot to say about it, good or bad. It's a Clint Eastwood movie, so you know it's at least competent. And, well, you know what? I'm going to go a step further. It's a well-directed film. It's got Bradley Cooper in it, so you know it's a well-acted film. I mean, there's really nothing more to add to it. So
I feel like it was pretty true to him himself, and especially because the, you know, after he died, because they turned in a first draft, and then like 2 days later he was murdered. And so, like, you know, eventually, you know, his wife called the screenwriter and was like, if you're going to do this, you need to do it right, because this is going to play into how my children remember their father. Mm-hmm. And so I do feel like that it doesn't really glorify Chris Kyle, because it does not at all. I was glad there wasn't like a scene where, like, a couple of the Taliban get into one of the buildings he's in and he like hand to hand combats them and, does some crazy jujitsu or whatever. I was, I don't think it glorified war in any sense. I think it shows what it looks like when you shoot through a scope, when you shoot a guy and there's an exit wound, and that's what it looks like. There's no like, it's not like he shoots the kid with the IED, and there's a blood splatter and you cut behind him and there's Slash on like a big guitar going,
yeah. Right, and everybody's giving high fives and drinking beers.
Yeah, exactly. You're drinking Budweisers, So
fireworks.
There wasn't any weird energy around it. There was never like this gigantic like melodramatic guilt, and there wasn't this like, all right, sweet, who wants to get a beer? It was just this what I'd always imagined and had heard that it was probably like in war, which was just, well, you keep looking, like, where's the next guy? Was that the only guy in the area? Let's just keep looking. Dustin, do you want to talk real quick about Wet Hot American Summer?
Sure. So let me give a little asterisk here. I started this film a few days ago. Watched about half of it, maybe a little more than half of it, but I did not finish it, so I can't really speak much in terms of having seen a complete picture of it. So I'll probably just be speaking more in terms of tone or just levels of humor that I had seen thus far, and levels of performance that I had seen thus far. So I can't really talk about how the story comes together or anything like that, but I can support whatever you have to say, Hooper.
Well, this is a comedy film that came out in 2001, and the reason we're talking about it is because Netflix has and will, but actually by the time this episode is live, it'll be out on Netflix, July 31st. An 8-episode kind of prequel series, which surprised me because I was like, this was about 15 years ago, but this is a prequel series. But here's why it's okay with me, because this story centers around this Camp Firewood or Fireside. It's like a grandpa talking about it. It was Camp Firewood.
It was Camp Fireside.
Yeah, I think it was Camp Firewood. But anyway, this camp, and there are a bunch of either kids or counselors that go there. They're basically they're older kids or younger counselors or whatever. And it was halfway through the movie, I was thinking like, this is a strange movie, and so I like just
it is a weird
Googled
movie.
It real quick, and because it's a spoof. It's a spoof of like sex comedies.
Right.
Because, of course, the camp, and, one person wants to get laid, and that person wants to get laid, and that person's a virgin, and whatever. So it has this sort of Airplane-esque quality to it, with either subverted expectations, like two characters, two gay characters get, like, a camp sort of, ceremony for themselves, and the friend who didn't know two friends who didn't know the one friend was gay, was like, he's a fag, like, what are we gonna do? And they show up and it's like, hey, you two, like in the cafeteria, and you think like, oh, this is the part of the movie where they like out them and everything, and they say, we got something for you, and they're like, oh no, and they walk in and it's like, oh shit, I don't even remember what it's called. It's like a son of a bitch, the joke's ruined. It's like so they corner them in the cafeteria, and you think that they're about to like out them or whatever, but instead, here's what happens.
Hey, McKinley and Ben, this is for you. It's a chaise lounge. We didn't know if maybe you guys already had one. We have the receipt if you do. No.
See, and it's just that's just one little gag. Yeah, chaise lounge. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I would never have thought of that. It's full of little, just little. As the movie goes on, it gets more and more like not outrageous, but like I really thought of Airplane a lot during it. Like not as goofy as Airplane. Like in Airplane, there's crazy stuff like a spear that gets thrown into a wall in the background. You don't know why it's there or who. But every now and then, like at one point they go into town in this movie, and so. You show them first, like, two characters are like, it's kind of like a little montage. Like, two characters are like having a cigarette by the truck, and then, you know, Jeanne
that's
Garofalo,
a weird sequence.
Yeah, that's where it first got my attention, where she walks up and she pretends to scold them, and then she takes one. And then, you know, they go and they all sit around smoking weed, and then two of the guys buy a beer, and everyone's excited. And then all of a sudden they're in an alleyway buying cocaine, like a giant bag of cocaine, and snorting it. And then all of a sudden they're in like this crack den, shooting up.
Yeah.
And then they come back and everyone's normal, and it's just like, hey, how was your trip into town? It's like, that's always nice to get away from camp, even if it's just for an hour, and they're all just normal. And you're like, wait, so did that even really happen? And it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And what's even funnier is after like they all say goodbye and part ways, the one guy runs off into the background, and everyone for some reason is just standing like facing a wall. For no reason.
Yes.
For no reason.
For absolutely no reason.
Stuff like that makes me laugh. So it's a strange movie, but it's funny. And so I don't know if the prequel series is going to be continuing that kind of humor, but it's only 8 episodes, and it's a real star-studded cast. You know all these people. You know, you got Paul Rudd, Elizabeth Banks. People would probably know Jeanne Garofalo, who I really don't like personally, but I really enjoyed watching her in this movie. Christopher Maloney, and then you got other people coming in like John Hamm, and just a lot of way too many names. I saw H. John Benjamin in there, who voiced this can of vegetables that talked to Christopher Maloney the whole time. He gets to play a human, it looks like. It's so weird hearing the guy who voices Bob's Burgers, like, you watch him sitting there talking, and it's like, oh my god, that's weird. It's so weird.
Yeah.
So, it's I'm pretty excited for the series, and I guess I'll have a review of that next time we record, because I plan on watching it. Especially since all these actors turn out to be pretty successful, you know?
Right. Exactly.
And it's not like this is 20 years ago. And here's another thing, like, it's a prequel, and I thought, okay, but this was 2001, but in the movie it's not constantly pointed at, but just like any sex comedy, you're looking at characters who are supposed to be teenagers being played by people in their mid-20s, you know? So I don't really mind that Ken Marino is once again playing a young guy, and he's like 40 years old, but he's playing younger because
18,
for the most part they all look pretty much the same as they did in that movie, which was young, but not like super young, like obviously young. Who looks the oldest that really stands out? I guess it's probably.
You mean in the original or in the
new one? Like from the trailer, honestly, the one who seemed, I don't know, like Paul Rudd still looks young. Obviously, he's but like even Jeanne Garofalo, who's 50, still looks like whatever age she was. I mean, what was that, 36 or whatever she was?
I would say Michael Showalter.
Yeah, he definitely looks the oldest. And a little bit of David Hyde Pierce, but everyone else still basically looks the same age. And it's not like they all go around the movie and go, "Well, as a 17-year-old, I don't know if they're all teenagers, but they're all pretty young," and that's really not even the point. So
exactly.
It's it'll be interesting to watch. Like they all basically look the same. Even Amy Poehler, who as a woman who's had a couple kids since the movie and has aged and blah blah blah. If you look at her like on SNL and then you look at her now, it's clear that she's aged. But at least in this trailer I saw, like, I don't know if she just did a lot of cardio or something, but because she's tiny in the movie, and she doesn't look quite as tiny here. But like I was thinking with some actors. My point is, I thought with some actors it would very much show that they had aged, and it really doesn't.
Yeah.
If you watch the trailer, so.
Right, and you can kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit, too, since, it's a comedy. It's a spoof comedy.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of funny one-liners in that trailer, and surprisingly funny jokes in the movie itself. So I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun that everyone agreed to come back.
Yeah, true.
Dustin, I only have one more thing that I want to talk about on this episode, at least from my end. So, do you have something you want to do?
Yeah. So, I think what I'll talk about next is Lee Daniels' The Butler. This came out. What was it? Was it 2014 that it came out? I guess it was
2014 or late 2013. I feel like it came out award season 2013.
Yeah. Let me double check that. Yeah,
okay.
It's 2013.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, it came out a couple of years ago. It's finally on Netflix, so I decided to check it out. This was not one that I thought really that I would see in theaters, just because, I don't know. It takes a lot to get me kind of to the theaters to spend $10. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for no money down, I will watch it. So The Butler is a story about a man named Cecil Gaines, played by Forrest Whitaker. It is not a true story, but it's based on a true story. So the names have been changed, the situations have been changed, but it's inspired by a real guy who served under, I think, 8 different presidents as sort of like the just a butler at the White House. And so it's based on this one guy, and they just kind of took that part of that guy's story and then wrote a fictional story around it. Which is a little disappointing. I guess maybe that guy didn't have an interesting life. Who knows? But
right.
But so I say it's based on a true story. It is and it isn't at the same time. So there's a lot of room for new, very cinematic kind of things. Unfortunately, the film didn't really give me too much to latch onto. The best way to describe this film is a probably like a Black History Month version of Forrest Gump, which is not a bad selling point, because there's certainly a lot of cinematic and interesting things that have happened around the civil rights movement.
DeForest Black. Or that's not what I meant to say.
What did you say?
I meant to say DeForest Gump. But I instead said DeForest Black.
Oh no. Oh Lord.
I'm sorry, you were in the middle of like a really important. I always do this too, Dustin. You're like riding a bike with this this nice little thought, and I just run up on the side and I throw a stick into your wheel.
The whole thing just flips over and I'm in a ditch now, and I've got to crawl.
The handlebars.
You won't even extend a hand to get me out of the ditch to get myself out.
Hey, Dustin, did you see that stick I threw in your wheel?
I've got 2 broken arms and 3 ribs broken.
All right, now, Dustin, keep riding the bicycle. I'm going to go back in the woods and hide.
Laughing all the way into the woods. But yeah, it's not a bad.
To be fair, a white
point.
man was named, and there was a white man named DeForest Kelly. That's not just black people.
This is true.
Okay.
Yeah, they. Oh, I can't do this now, Hooper.
I'm sorry, Dustin. I apologize.
It's not a bad selling. You got to keep all this in. It's not a bad selling point, but the problem with it is it comes across as predictable and formulaic if you've already seen Forrest Gump. So had you not seen Forrest Gump, maybe this would have been a really good movie. But having seen it, it feels like a lesser version of Forrest Gump because its characters are not as interesting. And maybe that's partially because this comes at it from the standpoint of purely drama, whereas Forrest had that comedic sensibility as well. So it's way easier to have fun with the movie and latch on to the characters because they're goofy and they've got these little things, these little quirks, Lieutenant Dan and Bubba, they have, while they do come across as characters, they're also, comedic movie characters.
Right.
This, on the other hand, doesn't have that. Now, I will say there's some great performances here. Forrest Whitaker is pretty much always on point. Oprah does a really great job in the film. and their children, Cecil and Oprah, who plays his wife Gloria, their children have been given a lot to do, and it's super interesting the way that they mature and grow, but it's a little bit of a detriment because you're not sure which of these characters we're supposed to be rooting for. So, in other words, this is the easiest way to describe it. Cecil Gaines lives by this sort of code that if he keeps his head down and his mouth shut and does a good job as a butler, then eventually he will tear down racial stereotypes and racial prejudices because people grow to care for him as a person. So it's a very personal level of activism. And it's a very quiet version of it as well. His son, Lewis, doesn't see that. Lewis is very headstrong and dives into these big showings of activism, sit-ins, and he gets caught up with the Black Panthers and these big versions of activism. So there's conflict between the two characters in that they approach their activism in different ways. And it's a very interesting concept that they don't go far enough with. And then in some ways they go too far. So, for instance, Cecil Gaines is all about family, all about, doing what's right and all this stuff. And he allows his son's activism, which he does not approve of, to drive a wedge between his own relationship with his son. And this, to me, contradicts the character's motivations. So there's a few problems like that with what am I really supposed to be feeling? Who am I supposed to be rooting for? And what do they want out of life? Do they just want to be a part of the civil rights movement? Do they just want, the equality? But that, while that's an admirable goal, is not necessarily strong enough to carry an entire film. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's a good look at different ideas of activism during the civil rights movement, and it's a good look at various key points in African American history, but it doesn't spin it into anything that is incredibly interesting or incredibly new, and it doesn't show me a side of it that I've never seen. So for that reason, and because it feels a little bit like Forrest Gump, I have to knock it down. And then there's the ending. The ending felt like it could have been, like, it would not have been out of place for the ending to, like, go to a patriotic screen and then you just hear, "My name is Barack Obama and I approve this message." Because it became...
Oh my God, is he in the room?
Yeah, it became a spotlight on Obama. And truth be told, I mean, Obama's election was a great moment. But the problem with it is, maybe it's so recent and it's still happening, is that it felt like it could have been paid for by the Obama administration to put this at the end of your film.
Yeah.
And it came across like a campaign ad as opposed to an actual satisfying conclusion to a film.
Yeah.
So they actually, Forrest Whitaker, while he was campaigning for Barack Obama, actually asked the president to film a scene for the film. And from what I understand, it was going to happen, and then his schedule, it didn't work out. So they filmed an ending scene with a stand-in for Barack Obama. They eventually cut that too, and you just kind of, like, they mention that he's going to go visit Obama now, and you never really see it. But the problem, like I said, is that the last few minutes of the movie is not even about our characters anymore. It's about Obama. And to me, regardless of your political affiliations, it's not a satisfying ending to a film. Maybe because I'm watching this in 2015, the film seems completely unended. Like things haven't changed, because we see these images in this film, and I don't want to make this a political podcast, Hooper, so I apologize, but we see images in this film that ring very true to today. Images of rioting, images of death, images of fighting, and it's not very dissimilar to what we're seeing on the news now. So the way that the film is structured is, over the course of these 8 administrations that this man is involved in, you see it get better and better and better and better for the African American community. And then the culmination of this is in the election of Barack Obama. But watching this film in 2015, it feels like the film cannot possibly be over, because the racial prejudice that has permeated the film is not better. I know the world I live in, and it's not better. Mm-hmm. So to me, the film suffers because it paints this picture that it's over.
Right.
If you watch this film, it tells me, if I were completely removed, had been living under a rock, and you showed me this film, like I've been so far removed.
Like if you showed it to like aliens who were about to visit us,
right? They would think, "Oh, this is very great that they have finally overcome their racial prejudices." And
the Hungarian aliens,
and that was just the first accent that came to my mind. But that's what the aliens would think. Like, hey, they're all one big happy now. But the truth is, that's not the case.
Hooray!
Larry King live.
Hello, this is Larry King.
The Zordberg.
There's no racism anymore in the country than there are non-gray or white hairs on my head, or my legs, or my private parts.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yes.
You tried to stick a wheel in my spokes, but I saw it coming.
You did a bunny hop.
I hit the brakes. So anyway, I guess my biggest problem with this film isn't in the Forrest Gump scenario. It isn't in the Barack Obama as whatever political thing. But the problem is that you set up a story which, to be fair, is not really about Cecil Gaines, is not really about our characters, but is about progress of the African American community in America and how things are increasingly getting better and better and better. That's what you set up. That's the momentum that the story has. And then there's a culmination, a climax, and it's done. Like, we've beaten it. It's over. There is no more racism. And that's the America you try to sell me on in this film, but it's not the America that I live in. So that's my biggest problem with the film, is that it is not over. Electing Barack Obama as our president did not solve our racial issues. So to treat it like it did is completely unsatisfying an ending to a film about progress.
Yeah.
Had the film continued, what we would have seen is more strife than we had seen in a while in the film. Yeah. So, to me, the film is rendered pointless by the passage of time, more than any movie that I've seen in recent memory. As the 2 years have progressed since the release of this film, the film has been made irrelevant. There may have been a brief moment in 2008 when it seemed like things had gotten that this would be the final blow for racism in America.
Right.
But that's not true. And we've seen that. So now that this film has come out and these things have happened recently in the news, the film is irrelevant. And there's really no reason to watch it, because you can get an actual true story just by reading Wikipedia. And that's way better than what they've been able to come up with in this film. So while it's an interesting premise that there could be a guy who influenced and worked in the White House under 8 different administrations, that's an interesting premise. You've sold me already.
Right. But they dropped the ball when they tried to tie it to racial progress in America because, especially falsely, because race relations are actually worse since Barack Obama took office. Like, if you compare it to 8 years ago, racial tension is much higher.
This is true.
For them to take it from just from an already good story and say, it'd be great is if we sort of climax the film with showing that racism is cured, and it's like, I wouldn't do that.
Right, and there's no hint of racism still being around. You get like it's a happy ending. It's yay when it should be great, but we still have a ways to go.
Keep it compressed to his struggle against racism and his overcoming of his circumstances, but not the nation and the world as a whole, because that story's not over yet.
Right, and that's a good point. Had they made it more of a personal story for him, and that the election of Barack Obama made an impact on him personally, then it would be a satisfying ending. But the characters were never strong enough to be the central focus of the film. The focus of the film was on the progress of, an idea. So there was no person to attach that resolution to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, if I had to say anything about the film, it's those three points. The formula of Forrest Gump, straight up through and through. The political campaigniness of the end, and the fact that it's not over. It can't be over. You painted a false picture of America. And those 3 things are bad enough to make this film not recommendable. That's not even a word, but I don't recommend that you watch this film, even though it's free on Netflix. Don't waste your time. There's a lot of more important cinema that will shed light on true events in a more interesting, more cinematic, and really more truthful way. So for all of those reasons, I cannot recommend this film. I will say there are some decent performances in here. If you're just interested in that, that's fine. Other than that, there's no reason to watch the film.
All right, then. I want to talk real quick, because I said I would last episode. I want to talk about Bojack Horseman.
Yeah, I'm debating on starting this one.
I really recommend it, Dustin. I think it's a great show. This second season has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And
really?
Yeah. It's a really fantastic show. So for anyone who hadn't listened to my season 1 review of this a few months ago, but season 2 of Bojack Horseman, currently all of it's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original show. And it centers around the character Bojack, voiced by Will Arnett. Alison Brie is the main character on this show. Aaron Paul, Amy Sedaris, Paul F. Tompkins. Those are probably the 5 main characters. Bojack Horseman, Princess Carolyn, Mr. Peanut Butter. These fucking names. I promise it. Whatever. So half the characters are human beings, like Diane and Todd, and then half of them, like Bojack and Princess Carolyn and Mr. Peanut Butter, are animals, are anthropomorphic animals. If you just Google Bojack Horseman, you'll see that he is, from like the neck down, he looks like a regular person. He's got feet and hands and whatever, but he's a horse. He has a horse head. It's just that's the unique kind of style that this show is in. Is just half the characters are actual animals, and it's just never acknowledged. It's actually part of what makes the show funny, because half the time there are like animal pun names. Like, it takes place in Hollywood, so Matthew Fox is a fox. Lenny Turtletop is a turtle. It's just names like that, things like that. And so this is a great show, and I think I described it last time as having like this sort of this rapid fire of jokes akin to Family Guy, maybe, but with the nuance and actual smartness of Simpsons jokes. And in trying to compare it to other things, I sort of realized like it's sort of creating its own brand of humor because it's got that sort of it's got enough stuff to keep you interested. It doesn't lull at all, but the amount of dramatic nuance in this show mixed with the quality of the joke writing. I mean, there are so many jokes, visual jokes, like actual written jokes, just fantastic. And and these characters feel real and their struggles feel real, and there's continuity in the show. So these are not one-off episodes. Yeah. There's continuity and consequences in the show. These characters feel so real and their situations feel so real. So in the last season, Bojack was having a biography written about him, and he sort of ends the season wondering whether or not he's a good person. I mean, this is a guy who essentially was the what's his name, Bob Saget role on a comedy called Horseman Around, where he was like the dad of this family. So he's got this incredible, like, cynicism fueled by alcoholism and, self-loathing and all this other kind of stuff. So he's this bitter guy who wonders toward the end of it, like, am I even a good person? And he's got this really troubled past, and it's actually done pretty, very humorously, but in a pretty real way. Like, that's funny, but oh my God, that's horrible. Like, his mom, he stole a cigarette from her when she, and she was like, no, don't put that out. It's a perfectly good cigarette. You're going to smoke the rest of it. Smoke it. And you're like, oh my God. Like,
wow.
Yeah, his parents were terrible. So in this season, he's sort of trying to find, in one of a number of storylines is, at least internally, is he's wondering, like, how can I be happy? I'm not happy, and what would make me happy? And it's so tough to describe. You really would have to watch it. Like, I fully recommend everyone watch this show. The voice acting is great. The characters are great. The jokes are great. The story is good, and the emotion is actually really nuanced and subtle and really well done. Again, especially for an animated show. Yeah, please check out the show. There's a whole review on IGN that I was reading earlier that pretty much nails it. Like, why this show is good, and especially a second season where a lot of shows just repeat their first successes. And Bojack does not do that. Like, it continues the stuff that works, but it does not rely on the structure of the last season. It just builds on it. And I'm excited for the future of the show. They've been renewed for a third season, and I'm real into it.
Awesome.
Yeah, great show. Yeah, good stuff. Like, I was a little annoyed. I think it took, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just Bojack's character in the first season, but it took me a few episodes to get used to Will Arnett's voice because a little bit of it was really annoying. And I couldn't tell, like, do I not like his voice? Do I not like the jokes? What is it? And I think it was just because Bojack was real bitchy and real, like, nah, like, kind of in the first few episodes. But that's kind of the point, I guess.
Yeah.
So when he does change, and he is more mature in this season, but he's by no means fixed. But he's, in certain ways, he has grown, which is, you'd like to see. So he has insights in this season that he wouldn't have been able to see last season, but he still has many, many problems. And this particular season, the guest star is Lisa Kudrow, who plays this girl he starts dating. I say this girl. She's an owl.
Okay.
And her whole shtick is that she just got out of a 30-year coma, so she doesn't know, but she's a network executive. so she's just figuring out, like, things like iPads and certain movies and things like that. She doesn't know that certain celebrities are dead. By the way, speaking of dead celebrities, for some reason J.D. Salinger is a character this season. He's not dead apparently, and he's going to resurrect this game show for Mr. Peanut Butter to be in. It's again, like, why J.D. Salinger?
Right.
Within the story, I think they explain he faked his own death and then he's actually still alive.
Gotcha.
And he'll every now and then be like, I had the same problem when I was writing Catcher in the Rye. It's like, again, why are you here?
Yeah.
But it's a really good show. I
That's awesome.
absolutely recommend it. So
Awesome.
That's my piece on Bojack Horseman. Please remember to subscribe to us on iTunes at HooperCast. Follow us on Twitter at HooperCast or Facebook, facebook.com/HooperCast or hoopercastpod.tumblr.com, hoopercastpod.blogspot.com, or hoopercastpod.podbean.com to find these episodes, or find us on YouTube. I'm a little bit behind on putting the last few episodes on YouTube, but those are all, again, if you can just go to Podbean, I don't know why you have to go to YouTube to find them, but those episodes are all over the place. You can actually probably Google us at this point, and you can find them from one of those sources. But I'll tell you that the biggest backlog of episodes is all on YouTube, and anything recent that's not on there is on Podbean. I've done a very, very poor job with Blogger and Tumblr and YouTube, probably since episode like 85. I'd say anything past that is not up right now. Some things might be changing in a few weeks with us regarding certain schedules, and you're going to have to roll with us for a little bit while we try and figure that out. But always keep listening and
passing us on to your friends as well.
And passing us on to your friends, like the town bicycle. We don't mind. That's why we're here.
We will not throw sticks into your spokes.
We love it. We love you. Long time.
I don't know if we need to commit to them.
Yeah, that's true.
We just need you to commit to us.
That's true. Yeah.
That's all we need.
Our brand is not committed to you. Our brand is you're committed to us.
Correct. That's our slogan.
Or else. You
can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Never leave my basement. By the way, and if you want to send us any feedback, you can email hoopercast@gmail.com. You can also write a review on iTunes. That would be nice, because
if it's a good review.
Yeah.
If it's a bad review, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, keep it to yourself.
You're not helping anybody.
Keep your misery inside, where it belongs.
Just bottle that noise up.
Bottle it right up. There's an episode of that 70s show where like someone's just like, no, come on, Eric. Like, if you got a lot of stuff, if you have any feelings, it's time to let them out. And he sort of like takes a deep breath and he's about to let go. And Red stands up. He's like, put him back in there, Eric. I think about that a lot, actually. Whenever anyone in any movie, like especially in a movie where there's like group therapy, and they're like, "Just let it all out." I picture him in the background going, "No, put it back in there, Eric."
Kurtwood Smith in every movie.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Goodbye. Good night.
Bye.
Good luck. And good. The good wife, the good shepherd. Goodwill Hunting. Oh shit! You know what? I had an actual tag.
Oh, did you?
I thought of it. I thought of like an outro or an intro
snap.
for myself, and I thought I'm going to try it out right here with you. What if I said, "My name is Mr. Hooper, and I drive the boat, Chief."
Oh,
you see?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, like Hooper drives the boat, Chief.
I see what you did there.
I don't know. It's kind of corny, but it's also like, I don't know. That's kind of where the name comes from. It makes sense to pay tribute to it. My name's Mr. Hooper and I drive the boat. Or I can sign off with, all right, well, keep driving the boat, or don't drive the boat, or I drive the boat. Stop driving my boat. Get off my boat.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Get a bigger boat. Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That would work.
I thought of it. I want that on a t-shirt. Like, I want it to say Mr. Hooper on the front, and on the back it says, I drive the fucking boat, and you don't. So don't try. Yeah.
Well, then I need to come up with a closing thing, too, but I don't have a thing.
Yeah.
I'm Dustin, and I'm here sometimes.
I'm Dustin, and, you know what? I'm dust in the wind.
Dust in the wind.
I'm dust in the wind.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Yes. All I am is dust in the wind.
All I am is dust.
Hooper take a turn? Hooper drives the boat, Chief.